Okay. All right. So comparing the effects of safely talk with or without reinforcement on children's social behavior. That is the title of the study. And it's my study. And it just got published on the 11th of March. And so the reason why I agreed to Kunti's request to switch dates is because I have everything ready. So what you will see is going to be my presentation for my thesis defense. um, yeah, so Safely Talk is the name of the intervention. It is an intervention. It's a peer-mediated intervention, and it focuses on improving children's social behavior. And so, as usual, I'd like to open the talk today with a discussion. I'm curious about your experiences supporting social play for young children who are socially challenged, which you mentioned the context, how successful did it get, and then what are the challenges that you encountered along the way?
The big one, I think, is the generalizations. So if we have taught the kids to play with us, when we pair him or her with a peer, usually it does not transfer. Some might transfer, but mostly not.
Yeah, can't hear you. Did you stop talking? Did you stop talking, Kiara? Or
Sorry, what?
you said it. You said it's a generalization. It did not transfer, and then you said, well, not necessarily did not transfer, and then we didn't hear anything else.
Well, yeah, then we need to teach the same skill with the peer. So like we need to teach that formally, right? So yeah, sometimes, when I think of interventions, then I'm thinking maybe we should just start the intervention with a peer from the beginning instead of, 2 steps. Then we would be kind of, in quote, a bit of wasting time because we're teaching him twice. And I know that some kids need that one-on-one and some kids, don't need that. So I think that's the biggest one. Another one would be, and I think with the peer, essentially, since we're talking about peer-mediated interventions, the peer has different stimulus control, and I observed this in non-focal kids where we're trying to social play, we're trying to give lots of vocal speech inputs, but the echoic was very, very minimum. But when they're not even playing together, but they're in one class, and the other kid has some level of play skills, and then the other peers were saying all this bunch of stuff, and then my kid, the non-focal one, is approaching him. He would just echo more of the peers instead of the adults. So there's that I don't know, the stimulus control, whether it's the sight of it's a different age with me, like the same boy, or is it the way he said it, or the specific way of the peer saying things or doing things. That's particularly interests me, that the peers has different stimulus control than adults somehow.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it has to do more SNSD, like you mentioned, or the MO?
The could be both. Could be both. But I'm guessing it's more of the MO. Yeah. But the stimulus control, like whatever it affecting the MO, or it's only affecting the SD. But because we're seeing this in multiple occasions, and we're testing the same play actions with the other kids, and well, it's not 100% perfect replications, but we see more responses when he's with a peer versus when they're alone in the room. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks for sharing. Yeah, for sure. What do you think, GN? What are your experiences supporting social play for young children?
From my experience, in clinical centers, we had this 101 setting, but then there was always this circle time that we tried to make them have a social moment. But some were very successful because we usually used some kind of PE things, like in groups. They had to wait in line, give the next turn to the others and stuff. But for me, some of the challenges were that the prompts that the therapists were giving, it was hard to fade out sometimes. So they wouldn't directly interact with each other, but they needed the mediation of therapists to actually give SDs or give some prompts for them to start initiating some social interaction with their peers. And also, especially for the things that they have to say, it was always repeated to them. Like, yeah, we had to always echo what they had to say in advance. Not the whole sentence, but at least the first words and stuff. So that was kind of the challenge that I thought was hard to fade out. But from one side, I think it's something that the therapists had to keep in mind more about the fading, because they are just so used to giving prompts that they forget that it's the purpose of this group session, the group time, the circle time, that it's actually for the social play. So with the peers, not with the therapist actually being involved that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, quick question. So to confirm, both of your experiences of teaching social skills and peer interaction happen in a center phase and not with typically developing peers, but with whoever that are available in the center, which most probably are other autistic kids.
Yes.
Is that also your case, Tiara?
Can you repeat that? It's a bit muffled here.
Sorry. So
Okay.
I was confirming that with GN, I was confirming that both of your experiences teaching social skills happen in a center context.
Oh yeah, center and I would say school-based.
School-based with other kids with disabilities as well, or
Typically developing.
okay. Are you thinking? Are you talking about Kibun because you guys are?
Well, I was thinking about other schools, but yeah, that's included as well. Now that I think about it.
Okay. All right. I just wanted
But
to.
But with the Chibun is with disability peers, but with the other school is with typically developing kids.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, I guess the peer-mediated intervention today, Safely Talk, that I will mention, that I will talk about today, will strive to answer all those challenges. Because instead of training the therapists, you're training the peers. Instead of prompting the kids with needs, we are prompting kids who are typically developing. Okay. And all right. So I'll talk about the roadmap. Okay. So first we'll talk about the background and then the rationale as well as the research question will be presented to you. Then I'll talk about the method, the results, the discussion, as well as we'll have a Q&A at the end. Okay, so a quick background. When I was doing this study, I was really interested in the phenomena of emergent bilinguals because I did my studies in the US. So I did so the population that I studied was emergent bilinguals in the US. And the reason why I chose this population because Indonesia is a naturally multilingual society and numerous research has already shown that bilingualism is a good thing if you know how to support it right. When I mention bilingual, I don't only mention, say, Indonesian and English, but I also meant Indonesian and Japanese, Indonesian and, say, the Batak language, or some other native language that are native to Indonesia. And okay, so that was a little bit of the motivation behind the population that I am studying. Okay, so really interested in emergent bilinguals, and in the U.S., it's very clear that the number of students that are classified as emergent bilinguals are on the rise. This is in the U.S. Obviously, and the number is about 10% of children in public school and 29% of children in Head Start. Head Start is a early childhood centers. I think it was pioneered by President Lyndon Johnson to combat poverty and to provide high quality early childhood education for those who belong in the lower SES margin. And so there are 20% of the children in Head Start are emergent bilinguals, and about 50% of the emergent bilinguals in these contexts need additional support. However, this rising number is not met with appropriate services. There is a general misunderstanding that children whose home languages are not English will learn English easily in classrooms, whereas the evidence shows that they need structured and systematic support without which key language skills gaps persist through middle school. And structured play during preschool years for emergent bilinguals is correlated with significantly higher academic success in later years. And one such example of structured play is Safely Talk. Okay, so the rationale is that previous studies have shown that Safely Talk has promising results for English monolingual children with English monolingual families with children with ASD, Down syndrome, and those who are at risk of any sort of disability. Particularly, it has a robust effect on stay and play, but low effect or mixed effect on talk. There is a large discrepancy in play and communication skills. Some Safely Talk researchers, such as Osborne and Favarini, they speculated that limited change in some of the target child's play and talk behaviors might be caused by large discrepancies in play and communication skills. So kids who are typically developing, who are the peers here, their language skill is much higher than, say, the kids with say ASD, and therefore Safely Talk results in talk might be more noticeable for children whose skills are closer to their peers. For example, those who are only at risk and or acquiring an additional language. And there's also mixed effects on and low effect on talk in previous studies, perhaps can also be explained by the theory of interdependence, like Kelly and Debod, about social relationships. That social relationships, including talk, are maintained if the reward outweighs the response effort. So there are studies needed to evaluate if Safely Talk could be considered an instructional and practice method for emergent bilinguals who are verbal but at risk for social delays, whose play skills are perhaps closer to the peers. And also the effect of Safely Talk combined with external reinforcement is increasing their play duration and talk. Okay, so that gave birth to a series of research questions. The first one, does it have any effect on play duration? Does it have, number two, does it have any increased instances of talk for target children compared to business as usual conditions? Okay, and then the third one, does Safely Talk, right? Let me explain it again. So I will have three different condition of play that I will be researching in this, that I will try to answer with this study. The first one is safely talk with reinforcement. The second one is safely talk only. And the third one is business as usual. Okay. And I try to compare play duration and talk compared to across all these three conditions. So I'm comparing play duration across safely talk with reinforcement, safely talk only, and business as usual, as well as talk for safely talk with reinforcement, safely talk, and business as usual. Okay, so that's basically the summary of all the research questions. Okay, and I am the DV, the dependent variable is on the target children. Okay, and then I also try to answer the fifth research question, which is generalization. Does it generalize this across adult implementer? So at first, it will be the primary investigator, the principal investigator, which is me, doing the intervention, and then does it generalize to a teacher, basically? And then I also so different adult different adult implementers, that's me or the teacher, and how does it generalize in play duration as well as talk? And then the seventh research question was, do target children prefer safely talk with reinforcement or safely talk over business as usual during free play? And lastly, do teachers view safely talk as socially valid intervention? Any questions on the research question? Sorry, there was a lot of it.
Nope, I'm good.
All right, so the method. I will explain the participants, setting and materials, response definition, measurement system, experimental design, and procedures. Okay, so the participants, I was able to get 2 triads. I call them Group A and Group C, as well as their classroom teacher. Triad B was recruited, but was withdrawn by the program to reasons that are not related to my study. Okay, so for Group A, we have target child A. He was 48 months, Asian, male, Korean, below average social skills, moved quickly from one center to the next, rarely talked to peers, and he had challenging behavior during play with peers, which included property destruction, like sometimes he would throw things over. And then when the peers are building their towers, he likes to push them and sort of ruin their towers. And because of that, he was often excluded by peers as well. And then target child C was a 37 month Asian male, Mandarin Chinese. He has well below average social skills. He's very quiet and anxious around other children. He always played alone, away from other children. As for peer buddies, I recruited 2 peer buddies for each target child. And the reason why I have 2 peer buddies is to reduce buddy burnout, because that's a real thing. If a child is only has one peer buddy, and that peer buddy is expected to constantly be with the target child, it will lead to burnout, because it's much more difficult to play with our kids, right, compared to other kids who are within his playing level. So which is why I had 2 peer buddies per target child. So peer buddy A1 is a 61-month white female monolingual English. She has average social skills. Peer buddy A2, 62 months male, white monolingual English, and he has average social skills. Peer buddy C1 is a 38-month white female monolingual English, average social skills, and peer buddy C2 is a 38 months white male. He speaks both English and Romanian at home. has average social skills. And the classroom teacher, Ms. A is 39, was 39, Indian American female. She has a master's degree in education, speaks Hindi as well as English, and has 2 to 3 years experience with young children. Ms. C1, whereas in classroom C, first I recruited Ms. C1, and she participated at the study at the beginning, but she resigned soon after. But she was the one who nominated the children. She's 36, white, female. She spoke only English. She has a bachelor's degree and a teaching certification. She has more than 5 years of experience. And Ms. two is the teacher who is an interim teacher, and she led the classroom from middle to end of my study. She's 51. She's white and has American Indian and also of American Indian descent. She's female. She also spoke French aside from English and has a master's degree in education with more than 5 years of experience. Okay, for setting and materials, it was done at a private early childhood education center classroom. It was done during centers free play, and I just used regular toys that are at the center. By center, I mean school. So it was a private early childhood education school center. And it's an inclusive classroom. So they have kids with needs and kids without needs in there as well. I tried to recruit very, very hard people who are marginalized and also what do you call it? People who are rarely included in research, such as those from the minority group, low SES, but it was very, very hard to recruit these participants. I tried to recruit for Center B. I was almost successful in recruiting this preschool that served refugee group, but there were some political issues at that organization, and so they are not able to facilitate the study. But I tried very hard to also represent them unsuccessfully. So I ended up with 2 classrooms that are private schools, and parents pay good money to have their kids attend, and parents are also very well educated. So that's one of the limitations that I will discuss later on. Okay, so Center A is a religiously affiliated preschool. I did my study in a classroom with children 3 to 5 years of age, and I did my intervention during morning free play. Whereas that school C is a university affiliated childcare program in a classroom with children 3 to 4 years of age, and I did my study during afternoon free play. Okay, so this is my training material. Training material, in the training material, I included a scripted story about a friend who is shy. So I talk about, why we do this Beyblade talk, and I tell this story to both children, to both my peer buddy as well as my target children. And because my target children, they barely spoke any English, I use a lot of visuals and interactive materials to help them understand the concept. Okay, so this is also my training materials. This is what it looks like. I talk about for each strategy, I also made an interactive visual, considering that our target children have limited English proficiency. This is an example of the visual for stay. So I had like a Velcro visual. What does it mean to stay close to your friend? If your friend is at the sand table, where would you go? Oh, you will. So I will have the children remove this picture, a Velcro picture, and then move it over to the peer buddy that move it over to be close to the target child. And at the end of the visual, I usually I usually summarize the strategy that is important for them to stay, play, and talk the entire time with your buddy. I'm sorry, with your buddy during buddy. All right. And I also use bracelets with visuals as discriminative stimulus. Business as usual, they're not wearing any bracelet just to signal that they can play however with whomever they want to. And white is signals stay, play, and talk. You see the strategies here. You want to stay close to your friend, play the same thing, whoops, and talk to each other. And the yellow one is the stay, play, talk plus reinforcement. And again, it has a strategy here. And at the end of the intervention, I usually ask them, did you stay close to your friend? Yes. Did you play the same thing? Yep. Did you talk to each other? Yep. And if you do, you can choose something that I named it the treasure box that I have. It's basically things from the dollar store. So the primary DV is stay and play, and they are coded together. And then the secondary DV is talk. Stay and play are combined. This is really important to understand how my study goes. Okay, so stay and play, they're combined as they are considered one behavior, and then there is another dependent variable which is talk, which is the secondary DV. Okay. The three responses that I was interested in studying was stay, play, and talk. Okay, stay. The definition is they need to be in the same center area or within 5 feet. Whereas, sorry, I'll just continue on this way. An example of play is with being in the same center area or within 5 feet of each other if the divides are not clear. Non-example included being in different centers or further than 5 feet if area divides are not clear. Whereas for play, I sort of did my social play definition based on Parton in his seminal 1932 paper. I included parallel play, associative play, and cooperative play in my social play because it was defined that way. And parallel play is if they play independently, but they are using the same toy. Okay, they play close and they play they are playing independently. However, they are close in distance and they are also using the same toy. The reason when I read the paper why it's considered also considered a social toy is because it opens opportunity to start to be social, to copy each other's play, to talk to each other, which is why it's also considered social play. And then associative play, they start to play with each other. They have conversation about the same activity while being involved in similar but not identical activity. I'm building a tower here, and you're building I'm building a tower here, and you're building a swimming pool over there. We are building our own thing, but we sort of like chat, like what did you do last weekend? Kind of the type of thing that has nothing to do with our play. And then cooperative play, they start to make a product, reach a goal, dramatizing situation, formal games. They started to want to achieve the same thing. Okay, an example of parallel associative and cooperative play includes using the same type of toy, different toy but similar way of playing, sharing and exchanging toys, and playing within the same play. Non-example included onlooker or solitary independent play, both playing with blocks but in different areas. Target child is building tower with blocks, but peer buddy is playing with cards, unless it's clear that they are clear play schemes, such as building a garage for the car. Okay, for the talk includes any verbal communicative attempts. An example would be greeting, asking questions, requesting, commenting, responding to questions or requests. A non-example would be target child does not talk to peer buddy. Target child does not answer peer buddy's questions. target child exhibits forms of verbal aggression, yelling, target child mumbles to themselves. Okay. All videos are video recorded by me. The data were coded following each session, both the all across three things: the dependent variable, procedural fidelity, as well as the inter-observer agreement. And sessions that are coded approximately the first 10 minutes of play session. Sometimes the kids were having so much fun playing together, and we sort of lost track of time. And sometimes that happened, but not a lot. So just the first 10 minutes of play sessions, though, are coded. And then the 10 minutes are divided into 5-second intervals, and IOA were calculated across sessions, conditions, and implementers. Okay, so 38% of sessions were coded for IOA for group A, and 39% were coded for group C. Okay. Stay and play, okay, so for the primary DB, stay and play, remember they are coded as the same thing. So they need to stay in the same place and then play the same thing to meet the definition of stay and play. And the observation method that I used was momentary time sampling and reported as percentage of intervals. And then for the top observation method that I used were partial interval recording and reported as frequency, that is number of talk per session. Okay. Experimental design and procedures that I used was the alternating treatment design. Okay, so these are the different phases that I used. So there was the baseline, and then there was the comparison, which is when I started the intervention, and then there is the best alone, which I chose one best condition and just run that one, and then generalization. This is when I switch with the teacher. So for the baseline, this is where I do the business as usual measurement. And then for the comparison, I have 6 comparison sets. So for the comparison set, they are either randomized or child choice. The only randomized one was the first set. Okay, this is because the kids need to experience all 3 conditions. That's why when I talk about it with my lab, we decided to randomize it. So for each set, there will be stay, play, talk plus reinforcement, stay, play, talk only, and then there's the business as usual. And these 3 sessions, for set 1, they are randomized. However, for the rest of the set, they are target child choice. So within each set, sessions 1 and 2 are typically child choice, and session 3 would not be chosen, but whichever one is left over. Okay, for example, for set 2, session 1, the target child chooses stay, play, talk plus reinforcement, then session 2, he would only be left with stay, play, talk or business as usual. Stay, play, talk with reinforcement will no longer be available. And then the third session would just be whatever is left over. For example, if stay, play, talk only is chosen for session 2, then session 3 would automatically be business as usual. And business as usual is just they play however they want to play with whomever they want to play. Okay. In this study, the 6 sets were added to see additional evidence to determine which of the intervention conditions should be used for which of the intervention conditions should be used for best alone and generalization for both groups. As you will see it later in the graph that there was quite a bit of variability, so we needed that 6 set to ensure which condition we wanted to, which condition we want to try for best alone and generalization. Okay. Um, Visual analysis is used to change phase and determine superiority of intervention. That is changes in that is changes level trend variability is used to determine phase change from baseline to comparison and from best alone to generalization. In the comparison condition, pairwise differentiation is used to determine superiority of the intervention, where the superior condition is used in the best alone and generalization phase. And at the end of the comparison condition, we decided that stapling top with reinforcement is better than stapling top, so we proceeded with this condition for both best alone and generalization. So I said a lot of words. Are there any questions?
I have a question, but it was way back on the methods. Maybe I should save it for later then.
For the methods, what
Yeah.
what is it about?
I kind of forgot, but
Okay,
I'm
that's okay.
going to open the slides. But I think, yeah, I'll save it for the later, for the
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
All right, so I'll talk about the training procedure. I did my training right here, right after baseline. That's when I do my training. Okay, so this is called the initial training. So you all remember that I had the target child as well as two peer buddies, right? So they are a triad. Okay, also a little bit of information why I chose a triad. Sorry. Uh, okay, sorry. So the reason why I had a triad is because of buddy burnout, right? I think we talked about that earlier. But then during the intervention, only two kids would play with each other, the target child and one peer buddy, and they will take turns. The reason being is that there are previous FPT studies, stapling top studies that have triads sort of play together, and the two peer buddies ended up playing together instead of including the target child. So, which is why I trained them as a triad, but during the intervention, only one peer buddy would be in charge. Okay. So for the initial training, I trained the entire triad. I trained both the peer buddy as well as the target child together. I do 1 day per strategy and rehearsal. And then 20 to 30 minutes a day of practicing. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes a day, sorry, of the initial training. And then I opened with a scripted story and I described and modeled a strategy with interactive visual. And then I practiced, I helped them practice buddy time by, I would prompt them and I will also give positive descriptive feedback. Oh, very nice. You are staying and playing with your friend. You're staying close and playing the same thing. Awesome. That's PDF, positive descriptive. Okay. And then we enter the comparison condition. And across the comparison condition, I also did some training. I call them the booster training. And whenever I do a booster training, I train again the entire triad. And I usually do this after a long break. I think it was like Thanksgiving break or something. Or like a 3-day weekend or something. Then I usually do a booster training. And again, it's 20 to 30 minutes and it's similar to initial training, but I just go across all three strategies. They play and talk together. And I do total of 2 booster per group. Okay. And then I also have retraining. And retraining is just the peer buddy with less than 80% fidelity across 2 intervention session. And so which I do this across and retraining takes about 5 to 10 minutes. So Group A did a total of 2 retraining, and Group B did a total of 1 retraining. Okay. So I train across all kids, both peer buddies as well as the target kids. However, for retraining, it's just the peer buddy, and only if their fidelity dips below 80% across the intervention. Okay. So best alone, during best alone, I actually do the Stay Play Talk facilitator training and the participants for classroom teachers, and I did approximately 60 to 70 minutes of training total. I did an introduction and rationale for the intervention. I described the Stay Play Talk behavior, and then I model, role play practice, feedback, and then I also have Q&A at the end. Okay, so I'll talk about the procedures within session, which I've touched a little bit earlier. So for the baseline, this is as usual. I just ask each child, for their assent, and then they just do free play as usual, and I didn't do any prompting. I just recorded their so videotape. Is videotape still a word? Record, video record, your, and then the comparison phase. In child choice sessions, the target child choose the condition, which is session sets 2 to 6. And then for the business as usual, it's identical with baseline, Stay Play Talk or buddy time. Whereas the Stay Play Talk or buddy time, I will start with an announcement and ask them for an assent, and I'll give them a white bracelet, and we go to their first center of choice, and then I start timer to start buddy time, and I then support peer buddy to do Stay Play Talk with the system of least prompts. Okay, SLP is not usually developed, but system of least prompts. Timer ended, and then I end buddy time, and then I check their strategies to the checklist on the bracelet. And this is Stay Play Talk without reinforcement. Whereas Stay Play Talk with reinforcement or buddy time with treasure chests, which is what I explained to the kids, the language that I use with the kids. This is identical with Stay Play Talk only, except that the children, they wear a yellow bracelet, and then they indicate reinforcers of choice at the beginning. They would have a peek at my treasure chest, and they would choose the toy that they will work for, and then they will collect the reinforcers at the end, contingent to doing all Stay Play Talk strategies. Okay, and then for the best alone, since the data showed us that Stay Play Talk is better, it's identical with Stay Play Talk and reinforcement during comparison. Generalization is identical with Stay Play Talk during comparison, except the teacher functioned as the play facilitator. Okay, and the prompting method that I used was the system of least prompts, and I will use SLP for the rest of the study. The prompting interval is every 30 seconds, and I prompt only one target behavior max. Stay and play, which is their one behavior, stay and play, or talk within the prompting interval. So if I've already prompted for stay and play during that interval, then I will not prompt for talk. Okay. If they are not staying and playing, then I will prompt them for staying and playing. If they're already staying and playing, then I will prompt for talk. Okay. So the prompting procedure we use is called the system of least prompts, where we start with the weakest prompt and progress to the strongest prompt. The purpose is to avoid over prompting, because there are a million different ways to play correctly, which is why we use the system of least prompts. So I give 10 to 15 minutes to see if they would stay, play, and talk independently. If they don't do the behaviors, then I go to level 1, And then if they still don't do the behavior, then I'll go up to level 2. Okay. So for stay and play, which are linked together, I use verbal and visual. I say stay and play with your friend. If I wait for 4 to 7 seconds and you're not staying and playing with your friend, then I will use verbal and partial physical prompt. I say stay and play with your friend like this. Whereas for talk, remember I'm only going to be prompting for talk if they're already staying and playing together. Okay. If they're not staying and playing together, I will only prompt for staying and playing. Okay. Again, to not over prompt them. So for talk, if they're already staying and playing, then I will plan to prompt for talk. Right. I would wait 10 seconds. They're not doing anything. They're only staying and playing together. Then I use a verbal visual and I say something to your friend. And then I'll wait 4 to 7 seconds. And then I model say, Tiara, look at this. And then the peer buddy will copy what I said. Tiara, look at this. And then hopefully Tiara will look at it. If not, then it's no big deal. So the results, I'll talk about the primary DV, which is the play duration, and then stay and play duration, sorry. And then the secondary DV, which is talk. And then I'll also talk about the play condition preferences, teacher social validity surveys, reliability, as well as fidelity. Okay. Play duration for target child A. Let me quickly orient you to the x-axis and the y-axis. The x-axis indicates the number of sessions. So I had almost 30 sessions. And then the y-axis is the play duration, which I presented in percentage. Okay, so in the baseline, it's stable with no trend. They never play together. And within the comparison phase, we see an immediate jump in the intervention condition. Compared to business as usual. So like the round circles, they are business as usual. They play talk with reinforcement is the triangles, and then the rectangles, the white rectangles, they are the regular stay play talk intervention. And you can see very clearly in the intervention period, there was a clear differentiation between business as usual and the two stay play talk condition. For the play duration. And then there was some variability, I guess, in the business as usual condition, which shows generalization. They actually started to play together even during business as usual. But then it dropped again down to 0. We did see again a little bit of generalization during the business as usual condition where they're not required to play with each other, but they did a little bit, stay and play together. Comparing both intervention conditions, though, we did determine that stay play talk plus reinforcement is better because we did see 4 pairwise differentiation in favor of stay play talk plus reinforcement. Now within the stay play talk only, if we talk only is the white ones, we kind of don't really see any trend. Okay, they just sort of like, they're just there. Variability, yes, trend, no. However, for the stay play talk plus reinforcement, we did see a slight increasing in the trend, especially during the later sessions. And during the later sessions, we see less variability in the stay play talk plus reinforcement than just stay play talk. When we're analyzing peer buddy data, stay play talk plus reinforcement also result in some stable peer buddy PF only for one session, the first one, where the procedural fidelity dipped below 80% versus 3 of the efficacy only. So it's clear that the peer buddies are more motivated to do a good job during the stay play talk plus reinforcement. We'll see later that stay play talk also has a strong functional relation in increasing talk behavior. This is the play duration, but we'll see later in the graph that shows talk that it has a very strong functional relation to increasing talk behavior. Lastly, we feel that safety talk plus reinforcement is better because target child prefers safely talk plus reinforcement. No surprise there. And then play duration continues to be high. Sorry, woo, to continue to be high in best alone condition as well as in the generalization session, wherein both phases did see an increase. Okay, play duration for target child C. You see that the baseline was stable with no trend. There was a little bit of a jump on the third session because the teacher introduced new play activity and all children crowded to participate. So they met the definition of play and play. But very quickly, target child moved away and played alone. Because of this, we took one more baseline data, the fourth one over here, which dropped back to 0. Okay, and then I did the training, and then again, you see a clear differentiation between business as usual, business as usual, compared to the two statement talk position. We did see 6 pair-wise differentiation across all comparative sets. The intervention sessions predictably result in longer play duration. We see some data variability for intervention and for the intervention, as well as for business as usual. We did see some evidence of generalization in the business as usual position as well, as we also saw in the previous group of kids. Comparing both intervention conditions, we determined that safely talk plus reinforcement, which is the black triangles, are better. This is because there are 4 pair-wise differentiation in favor of safely talk plus reinforcement. We see less data variability in safely talk plus reinforcement than safely talk. And when analyzing peer buddy data, safely talk plus reinforcement also result in more stable peer buddy fidelity. The peer buddy procedural fidelity never dipped below 80% for the safely talk plus reinforcement versus 3 times during safely talk only. Again, they're a lot more motivated to do a good job when there are external resources. And then again, we'll see later that safely talk plus reinforcement has strong functional relations in increasing talk behavior. And target child prefers safely talk plus reinforcement. So play duration continues to be high in best alone and generalization session, with an increasing trend at best alone and no trend at generalization. They played with each other the entire time. Okay, now we get to the instances of talk. The x-axis indicates the number of sessions, and the y-axis indicates counts of talk. Again, I'm always using partial interval recording, so within that 5 seconds that the child talked, I just counted as one talk. Okay. So baseline data showed no trend where target child never talked to their buddy. Okay, and then we have training here, and then we see an immediate jump in data point between baseline and intervention conditions. Comparing interventions and business as usual, we see strong functional relation where there are 6 pairwise differentiation, safely talk plus reinforcement compared to business as usual. We also see data variability that results in one overlap at session 2 with SPT only condition. So there was no overlap with business as usual with SPT plus reinforcement, but there were overlap in business as usual versus the SPT only condition. Comparing the 2 intervention, we see Oh, sorry. So sorry. So for the state plate talk plus reinforcement, we see 6 pairwise differentiation, and for the state plate talk only, we saw 5 pairwise differentiation. Comparing the two intervention, we see 4 pairwise differentiation in favor of safely top plus reinforcement versus 1 in favor of safely top only. Safely top plus reinforcement is the only condition that results in consistently more top than this is as usual, a total of 6 pairwise differentiation. This also results in less data variability, and unlike SPT only that showed no trend, the SPT plus reinforcement showed an increasing trend toward the later. Okay, so best alone and generalization also shows a similarly high number of days. Best alone had no trend, and generalization had an increasing trend. Okay. All right, so target trial 3. Baseline for target child C showed no trend, where target child never talked to peer study. Within the comparison condition, we see an immediate jump again in data points only for safely talk plus reinforcement. Comparing intervention and business as usual, we see at least 5 pairwise differentiation in favor of the intervention. There's some variability in both intervention and business as usual, but no trend. Business as usual is mostly stable, except for the one section at weekend. Okay, like there was some generalization there in the business as usual. Comparing safely talk and safely talk plus reinforcement, we see a strong functional relation that showed that SVT plus reinforcement is more effective in increasing target child's frequency of talk in a session within 6 pairwise differentiation in favor of SVT plus reinforcement. Each of the intervention conditions showed no trend. So there is an immediate jump in data points from comparison to best alone. See that? There was a huge jump there. Anecdotally, before the last comparison session, we had a booster training. I used the phrase, "What's that?" as an example of using the talk strategy. And target child C started to use it on the last comparison set, but use it a lot during the best alone session. So it was like, "What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that?" And that's why we had a huge increase in talk. We see no trend during the best alone session. During the generalization session, we see a dip in talk occurrences of the first session, perhaps because of the change in adult facilitator, but it sharply increased on the second session because the target child maybe got used to it. All right, now we'll talk about target child's play condition preference. Target child A and target child C, well, when given a choice, they will choose safely talk plus reinforce. Okay, but the difference is here. For target child A, safely talk was chosen only twice, and best alone was chosen 3 out of 10 opportunities, when not including safely talk plus reinforcement. Okay, where target child C chose safely talk, even when reinforcement is no longer given, and he never chose business as usual. Okay, so what does it say? It says that safely talk, it's not aversive, and there's also theory of it also shows theory of interdependence, that with practice social interaction becomes reinforcing, and reinforcer is necessary at the beginning, but later it may be able to be faded. So this is the graph that that my advisor during my thesis defense said that, oh, you don't have to include the graph because it won't really tell anything, you just describe it. But when we are publishing it, the peer reviewer requests for the graph, and so here it is, and it made it to the journal, and it's really sort of interesting. You see, this is So target child C is renamed Calvin. Target child A is renamed Aaron. So it's really interesting. Calvin, he never chose business as usual. Either he would choose, either he would choose safely talk with reinforcements, or safely talk even without reinforcement. Okay, but Aaron, this is where it gets really interesting because he would reliably choose. Safely talk with reinforcement, and then he would choose business as usual. However, at the end session, towards the end of the study, the last set, he did choose safely talk over business as usual. Business safely talk without reinforcement. So again, it's sort of maybe if we were to continue the study longer, maybe it is a better testament to the theory of interdependence. You know, in the beginning, it is harder to play with each other, but then towards the end, they have learned to play with each other really well, and they start to enjoy it. But they won't get to that enjoyment part unless we teach them and give them external reinforcement. Okay. And then for the social validity, I enlisted the classroom teachers that have seen me coming for an entire semester, and they have seen me intervene with the kids, and they did say that the intervention was effective in increasing target child social interaction with a peer buddy. The mean was 4.5 and the range was 4 to 5. And the peer implemented intervention safely found it's feasible and appropriate for increasing the social interaction of children, which they also rated pretty high. So 1 is strongly disagreed and 5 is strongly agreed. So their rating was between agreed to strongly agreed. Okay, and I also had video. Early childhood practitioners naive to the intervention. I also enlisted them to do social validity of the intervention. So they have never seen the intervention before. They are not aware of the intervention. I just sort of enlisted them and then randomized some videos, baseline versus intervention, and then they choose. They will rate them. Okay, so participants were asked to rate children's social interactions for each video. And for group A, the baseline videos had a mean of 1.5, which is 4, like 4 to fair, okay, 4.5. And then it jumped over to the mean of 3.5, which is average or above average. And similar result also was achieved for group B. Okay. Very quickly, procedural fidelity and inter-observer agreement. Average procedural fidelity for play facilitator, that's me, about 96%. The average implementation fidelity for peer buddies is about 92%. IOA. So I have PF for peer buddies for the kids who are typically developing because they are the implementer. And then the IOA is about 94%, and the talk is about IOA for play duration 94, and talk is about 95%. And we'll get to the discussion part of it. Okay, so conclusion. In summary, the study corroborates existing safely talk studies that safely talk is effective in increasing play duration of children experiencing social delays, and there are also positive perception of safe play talk. And the study also extends current safe play talk literature because safe play talk is shown to be effective for emergent bilinguals. And also positive reinforcement is important in increasing target children's talk, influencing their condition preference and more stable peer buddy fidelity. And children's and through the study, we also see that children's improved level of play duration and talk generalizes across adult implementers. And teachers can facilitate play talk play sessions to fidelity after a brief training. For future research, I said that emergent bilingual learners in more varied settings need to be studied. I tried, like I said, to enlist those in the lower social economic status spectrum of refugees, but unfortunately not successful. I had to graduate, and so I ran with Group A and Group B, Group A and Group C instead. And then also to study more on class-wide reinforcement system combined with safety. So in my case, I only did triads, right? So two groups of kids. And future studies, it will be really helpful to have class-wide reinforcement system, the entire class participate in Safe Play Talk. Also teacher coaching and Safe Play Talk and potential combining Safe Play Talk with other social skills. Okay, that's it. Questions? I can't hear anybody.
That was a lot.
I know. Well, it was my thesis, so.
Yeah. Wow. Questions. Oh, I had a question about the talk pot. So you did the percentages using the momentary time sampling, but I wanted to know a bit of what they actually said. Was it really valid to be considered like very social talk? Was it repeated? Like because if they did make some statements or things, if only some parts were repeated and then it was checked, it would be stated that the percentage is high, but then the actual quality of it, we don't know about that part. So I was curious about that.
Yeah, so yeah, that's something we don't study. So I just studied the sort of like the count and the frequency of the talk. From what I remembered, the quality of talk increased because the child starting to learn more of the language and also learn the familiar phrases as well. So the quality anecdotally. But in the beginning, they know they can speak. That was one of the what do you call it? Inclusion criteria that they have to be able to communicate. And they know how to talk. It was just that they are very, very shy and very, very anxious. Target child C particularly was extremely anxious, and so they didn't talk with any of the peers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and very limited English. So, yes.
What was that? They limited.
Very limited English.
Very limited English. Okay. Can you give me some of the examples that what they would say? Like, what was the actual? You gave me what the training was about, but during the actual experiments, like what were the social plays that they did? What you said you used the things from the center.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know a bit more detail.
So what it is that the peer buddy, the target child. So I taught them to observe the target child, and if the target child goes to say to puzzle, and then they would go to puzzle, and if the target child plays with puzzle, and then they would play with puzzles as well. So they played with a whole different things that are in the classroom, wherever the target child was interested in going. And this is a real running classroom. So we have a child who so for one classroom they both go to the what do you call it? The home something corner. I don't know. I can't remember what they call it in the US, but the kitchen corner, like they were playing cooking, or whatever, and then they go to the train station, and then they play with train, and then they were building towers, and then they were moving somewhere else, and then they engaged in movement play, and then there was a musical corner. One classroom had a musical corner, and the target child was interested in using the musical instruments, and so he did, and so the peer buddy followed, and then there was an insect corner, and playing with magnifying glass, like the target child was using magnifying glass, and then the peer buddy came over and also grabbed another magnifying glass, and they started to magnify each other. So those are some examples. Yeah.
Okay.
So it is
Thank
in a
you.
very dynamic classroom.
Mhm.
We don't. I don't control. The toys that are in there. It was just whatever the teachers have out.
All right. Hmm. It's quite interesting. If I had a chance to do that, I would definitely have a try. But the limitation at working in centers, clinics, is that we don't really have, we can't really find easily the peers with who are neurotypical to come into our sessions and do this. While at schools also, well, at least in the schools that I've been to, we have like inclusion classes, but also the separate ones that they go into. And I don't know, parents of the neurotypical children might not be so supportive of helping other kids during the class. It's just my assumption. I have never
Yeah.
tried, but I would think it would be a bit hard. So
Yeah.
did you have those problems too?
No.
No.
Well, it's no, because they're already in the classroom together, right? And I have my consent forms, and they have to sign it. They have to understand what the study is about, and they have to sign it. But I didn't have any parents that refused. So because the kids are already in the classroom, they're already playing together. This is 5 to 10 minutes a day, and so
Oh, yeah.
so that wasn't a problem in an inclusive classroom. I understand it might be trickier. I think maybe in a clinical context, and unless you have a volunteer family volunteers, their brothers or their sisters to come and do it. But the Safe Play Talk literature also shows that it's effective for families and siblings to do Safe Play Talk together. Again, it's just 5 to 10 minutes a day. It's not like your kid has to play with this Down syndrome kid for 5 hours every day. Can't play with anybody else. Just 5 to 10 minutes. And it is and that's the extent of the requirement. And I also run a school, and I try to do a class-wide intervention, class-wide buddy system. Safely Talk, and it so far it had worked really well as well. Yeah, it had worked really well as well. But that initially, especially when kids are really young, having that external reinforcement works very well because when they're doing the buddy system, when they're doing the buddy time, they have to leave whatever, they have to follow this autistic kid to do his play instead of your own play. Does it make sense? So that reinforcement, that external reinforcement works really, really well. And unlike my study in my school, I get to see them grow up, right? I get to see them when they're 2, when they're 3, when they're 4, when they're 5. And sort of like the intervention is just something that we have long term. Any kids with needs, there will be during buddy time, which is maybe 3 times a week that we have in school. They're required to play together for 5 to 10 minutes. And by the time they are 5, they play with each other really well already.
Oh.
We don't need to prompt them. We just say,
Mhm.
okay, all right, okay, make sure everybody has a friend. That's
Mhm.
all that we do.
Mhm.
And they play with each other voluntarily. They probably score pretty high on the index of happiness. There was a lot of laughter. There was a lot of communication. And the like you said, the quality of the communication becomes higher because like in my study, right, I was doing my master's thesis, and so it was a semester, right? Like how much can you improve, right, in one semester? Whereas now in school, I see them across the years,
Mhm.
and so it is and so the level of talk and the quality becomes a lot more varied. The reason why I like this intervention, this is probably my favorite, favoritist of all favorite intervention. Not only because of say its effectiveness, but also it matches my own philosophy. I feel that it provides an equitable access to quality social interactions because when we have kids with autism, right? They enter a classroom and then the shadow teacher or the assistant like prompt them to talk to this typically developing peer, and this the typically developing peer is moving at the lightning speed. They talk so much, and this person is not responding as quickly as they want, and so the response effort becomes too hard.
Mhm. Mhm.
Whereas with this intervention, every like typically developing peer needs to slow down a little bit so that
Mm.
our kids can catch up. And so I feel that
Yeah.
it's a very fair, let's call it a very fair expectation. And
Mhm.
so, like you said, especially in the Asian countries, parents might not want to have their kids socializing with kids with needs too much, right? But I know that's really hard, and it's because I have a school, so whoever joins my school has to agree with this philosophy.
Mhm. Mhm.
I always say instead of saying that, yeah, but my school has kids with needs. So I'm sorry about that. Your kids might get hit, right? I don't do that. But instead of saying that, I say, our best program is our inclusion program. It's so great.
Mhm.
This is why it's great. It teaches the kids with who are typically developing
Yeah.
21st century skills, cooperation skills,
Mhm.
teamwork, leadership. They are taught compassion. They are taught to love one another and be kind and
Mhm.
be patient. Won't you want that for your kids? And so I presented it that way. And so I also said that if you don't agree with our school philosophy of inclusion, of diversity, of equity, maybe our school is not right for you. But I
Mhm.
realized that, you know, coming into a different school, you really need to get the buy-in of the teacher. I
Mhm.
am kind of fortunate because I have a teaching background. So when I go to a different school, I say, yeah, it worked. It worked.
Mhm.
And so I can show them how it had worked because I am in their shoes. I know how busy they are. I know how difficult even typically developing kids are. And so so yeah, I get what your concern is. I think my suggestion for that is to get buy-in from parents, which is, you know, it's sometimes tricky. Buy-in from teachers, which is also sometimes tricky. Uh,
Mhm.
and it's but if you do, then this is something that's gonna get.
Yeah, I really do think so. I think that the structure and the philosophy that you have, I think it's what connects with mine also. And I also see that maybe in preschools, it's much easier rather than when they actually get into real like elementary school, middle school, that age, because we are more oriented towards like academic
Yeah,
things. But
yeah,
definitely, if in preschools, I think it will be a great place where they can start having those kind of structure where both the neurotypicals and the developmental delay children can both benefit. I think it's, yeah, really great.
Yeah. For high school, for high schools and for elementary schools also, you might want to look at remaking Recess by Connie Cassary from UCLA camp. You went to UCLA, right? Didn't you go to UCLA?
UCSD?
Oh, you went to UCSD?
Yeah, just for an exchange student for a year.
Oh, my parents are from San Diego. I didn't know that you go to UCLSD.
Oh.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, in UCLA, there was this professor, Connie Cassary, and she also does a lot of this like peer-mediated intervention type in real school. And the intervention that I thought was interesting and it's pretty similar to Safely Talk. It's called remaking recess.
What was that? Remake pizza?
Remaking recess.
Remaking recess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Remaking recess. Okay.
So because older kids, they don't have free play anymore, right? They don't have
Mhm.
centers, but they have recess, and they have lunchtime. And
Mhm.
so lunchtime, recess, clubs, those are three things that
Oh.
you can do something about. Yep. If I'm not mistaken, two to four was the average. But
Uh-huh.
you know, no, 2 to 5. Sorry, 2 to 5.
2 to 5.
2 to 5. Yes.
Mhm. All
Because
right.
my peer buddies, they were 5 years old age.
Mhm.
And so, but in my school, I have kids who are 7 so I have kids from 1.5 years of age to 7. And so everybody takes part in this structured play. And honestly, the older they are, the easier it is
For the yeah. Mhm.
for the peers.
Mhm.
And I did kind of something similar, although not particularly Stay Play Talk, but I did teach them to sort of care for one another when I was teaching first and second grade. This is before I went to graduate school, so I just did whatever I can, and it had worked really well as well. I think
Mhm.
as a teacher, you need to sell it to the kids, right? You need to
Mhm.
instill the value of being kind, being empathetic, being compassionate, right? And I think it's all really good things. I hear a critic, even one of my professors at Vanderbilt saying that they don't like to burden peers, but I disagree. I feel like it's their civic responsibility. It's their
Mhm.
responsibility as a human being to care for one another. And 5 minutes in a day, I don't think that's too much for
Mhm. So at your school, they still work in triads, is it?
no. It's
No.
just whoever plays with anyone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
as long as like one kid has a peer to follow them, it's done. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Obviously, at first, I will choose an easier kid to be that peer, and I will give lots of praise, lots of
Mhm.
positive descriptive feedback, and everybody heard them, right? Heard me say it to them, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
soon they want to be that peer.
Mhm.
And classroom teachers, they have so much power. They are
Yeah.
the king and
Yeah.
queen of the classroom.
Mhm.
It's so most kids want to please the teachers. And so if the
Mhm.
teacher shows kindness towards kids with needs, they will mostly also follow that.
Mhm. So if teachers, regular teachers at schools had to implement, like, had the opportunity to do this, would they not resist in training them and training the other children, the neurotypical children, and actually like giving praise to them? Those kind of things, they might think it is easy, but also at the same time they might think it's extra work.
Yeah.
So you also just buy them in with the same philosophy, or
Yeah.
what's your trick?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I feel
Oh.
like, yes, it'll take work, but it's worth it. You know, it is what we
Mhm.
want for our kids. We don't need them to memorize more things. We don't. We need them to be kind human beings. So I usually, that's my my go-to, and I show them what are the 21st century skills. You know, I tell a story about my classroom, one particular incident that was really moving, and I said, which of the skills that you see that was presented by the OECD as 21st century skill, and I checked all the boxes. You know, would you want to have your kids have those skills as well? And my kids are 2 to 4 year olds, and so if they can do it, your kids can too. I don't know. I said something like that to get their buy-in. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, this is where I throw my Harvard card. This is where I try to like, you know, come in really strong and show that, you know, I have very good whatever. You know, and then yeah.